All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with my co-hosts Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion. And it is indeed a Blazer Victory episode. So, shout out to the team blowing out Alcorn State last night. We will get into that game recap, but first, if you are not following our channel on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below on YouTube at Blazer Pod. Yeah, we said it up top, but it's actually on the bottom. Last time was it, so we messed up last time. So hit that follow or our subscribe button on our YouTube channel to see us. And of course, if you're audio only, there will be a link in the show description to just click that link and subscribe to us. We're already at like 232, I think. So we are getting those follower numbers up. So thank you everybody that has subscribed already to the YouTube. But if you're not, go ahead and subscribe. But this game recap episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast and all game recap episodes this season are brought to you by Cahaba Brewing Company. Shout out Cahaba. This episode we're gonna spotlight the Pale Ale, and so smooth, low ABV. You can't go wrong with a good pale ale. And if you have not tried that beer, hopefully everybody got the chance to go to Blazer Village before the game, before the monsoon happened last night, and sample a few of Cahaba's beers. If you did, let us know in the comment section what you liked about Cahaba. We love Cahaba, and thank you so much, Cahaba, just for this second season sponsoring the Blazer Victory Podcast. But if you have not checked out their spot in the tap room, go to cahababrewing.com, find out more information about the tap room, hours, and what they have on draft. But thank you again to Cahaba for sponsoring the podcast. Guys, UAB blew out Alcorn State last night, 41-3. Where do we want to start? Darian, just what's your initial reaction from the blowout victory last night?
Yeah, so it's like I gotta activate two sides of how I'm feeling, of how I am, because I do have this coaching side to me and I have a fan side to me. So I have to find ways for both to coexist. Context, we talked about it. Shout out to BJ. When you guys had it on the Patreon, fantastic interview. Turns out he was Nostradamus about what he was saying about the team and what he was predicting. Just great research. Shout out to the Alcorn fans. They were so nice, and they came and they've been showing us a lot of love, saying how much we do our research and how accurate we were. And I really, really appreciate that. I really do. That's what makes me go, right? It turns out that what we were able to come up with was pretty much true. They were overwhelmingly picked first to win first in the SWAC West, right? Overwhelmingly. They have a sound defense. I got to give them credit. When they had us in one-on-one situations, they got our runners down. I was able to rewatch the first half. They sent exotic looks. They were really sound. They were responsible. They were reliable. They were like Trent Dilfer Dip guys, right? They like this. The guys love Trent love like trustable is what he would say. They did a lot of things for the first game, but I'm gonna go back to how I was feeling real quick before I get into analysis. The fan side of me is really, really happy. It's a 41-3, and we won that on the back of our defense and our special teams. Defense and special teams. And then even on the rewatch, I'm like, that looks real. That doesn't look like a fluke. Like when Trent talked about linked a lot, when they finally got on the field together, I was like, okay, I see what he mean. Because we had Russaw and Michael Moore out there at linebacker. Michael Moore is 6'5". Russaw is good 6'3", looking 6'2", 6'3". Then you cross the line with LD Cox. LD Cox, I love LD Cox. Like looking back, his hustle and motor, the dude never stops. He's a dog, But just looking at LD Cox, and then you have Kendall Johnson, then you got Desmond Little, and then you got Shepard. oh, Ezra Odenajor, like whole bunch of lengthy guys, Emmanuel Waller, DeMarcus Smith. It just kept coming and coming up. All these guys is like 6'4" and up, 6'4", muscle bound. And I'm like, man, these we look legit on the back end. Our tackling guys were going down. I looked back at that NCAT game just to make sure I wasn't tripping. And if y'all can remember, in the first quarter, I think like their first or second play when they got the ball, they broke off like a 30-something yard run, and the guy like trucked over two guys, and he kept running, and they was like, oh, no. He was like number 35 or something. I'm like, it wasn't inspiring to see. It was not. Listen, they got one-on-one with our guys, and it was going down. Adrian Maddox open field tackles, brothers, Rusal looks a lot better than what he did last year too. Everybody, if you were one-on-one, you went the other way. Tyler McNichols, like he looked good coming in. I'm like, ooh, this is a totally different team. Our first couple plays versus NCAT, it was like a linebacker and a safety. I'm not calling names anymore, but it was linebacker and a safety, broken tackles, drug for 7 extra yards. I'm like, what? Like, no, none of that. And our defense was just dominant the whole game. And we can get into analysis. Coaching side of me, we left a lot of points on the field. And we're going to get into it, but that was
yeah.
That part of it, like Trent, if you listen to Trent after the game, he did his interview, Trent was not happy. He was not happy with the offense. He was ecstatic with the defense, ecstatic with the special teams, but offense, we were not sound. Like I said, I only been able to watch the first half again. We were not sound in assignments, like little things that you miss when you can't do a watch back. I was just looking. I'm just like, it was really sound in assignment football, and we were not sharp. I'm glad that was the first game, but that part of it wasn't even a physical thing. It was where are you going and what are you trying to accomplish? And I was in here like a coach, man. I was just looking back. I'm like, we wouldn't even got in this position to fumble the ball. If you would have just did XYZ this play, we had it. It was right there. And then you got guys. Whenever you see guys, especially offensive linemen, whenever you see them kind of run down the field kind of like this, they miss their assignment. That's just the nugget. I saw that a couple times. Come on, man. Come on. But yeah, let's save a little bit for the rest of the episode.
Well, Jimmy, what are just some of your initial thoughts and reaction from last night?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's good to actually be talking about games. It's been so long. We've been talking about recruiting, which we enjoy, and just all kinds of other stuff. But to be able to evaluate and to hear Darian break down film and talk about the game is just an exciting time of the year. So feel blessed that we were able to get together with the Duncan family for game one. We survived the monsoon at a nice little corner table and mug shots, and the rain stopped and we went in. And I think the favorite part of the game was Elizabeth's reactions to John giving some people some hell during the game. So if y'all were at the game, you probably heard John. I mean,
I was going to say, hey, in Mugshot, they're not a sponsor, but I bet they loved that delay. So when we had to sit up there an extra hour and I had a couple more, I was like, uh-oh, man. It's going down, man.
Yeah, no, that was some good times, though. Yeah, but, initial thoughts is, speaking of the UAB offense, as Darian stated, there was, dissatisfaction from the coaching staff and Dilfer in particular at the offense or of the offense. And, I find that, interesting, and I find that good because at the same time, like, that's a night where the UAB offense did move the ball down the field. I mean, what they have? I think it was like 32 first downs and 500 plus yards. So, I mean, it was a night in which the UAB offense was good, but to Darian's point, they left, quite a lot of points and quite a lot of opportunities on the field. And, defensive and special teams, that's something that, was a point of emphasis, a huge point of emphasis. You look at things like I was saying even to Darian last night, going to the game, Bill Connolly and the SP plus minus had UAB defense and special teams ranked last in the entire country coming into the game. And so just showing that massive disrespect. But also just, I'm always trying to like compare things. And, when you look at the NCAT game from last year, there are quite some similarities. NCAT last year went 2 of 8 passing for 16 total yards in that ball game. And, ultimately, as you look at the UAB offense, UAB did throw the ball around, quite a lot more attempts. But from a rushing perspective, like UAB was really efficient and good on the ground in last night's ball game, which was good to see. Over 300 yards rushing, I believe, which was almost double the production from the NCAT game this past season. But there was a lot of good, and there was a lot of opportunities to clean up. You think about some of the penalties. Those are problematic, and the turnovers that really, resulted in us leaving points on the board. So it's kind of like a good feeling to walk away from a game in which it was never in doubt, but to still have a lot to clean up. That gives the coaching staff a lot of motivation, a lot of things to talk about to get them ready for this big week 2 matchup.
Yeah, 100% agree. You really can't complain beating a team 41-3. And I know Alcorn's a FCS or SWAC team, but I do think they are physical up front, especially on the defensive line. Now, kind of turning to the offensive line for UAB, you just mentioned, some pre-snap penalties, some holding penalties, getting pushed around a little bit up front throughout times in the game last night. But Darian, one of our Patreon members, Andrew Parker, asked in our community chat. So shout out. Hey, well, we love this community chat, by the way. Like we just started, we unveiled it this a few days ago, but the chat was popping during the game. It's going to be popping throughout the week. But Andrew asked, are you guys concerned about the offensive line or the offense in general after the first game? So Darian, I know, you being a former center, are you concerned about the offensive line? I mean, we don't want to overreact on just one game, but are there concerns there after last night's performance?
Well, and just a little context. Even I shared an article like from HBCU Game Day, and they specifically knew that their strength is the D line, which we talked about, and that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to put pressure on our offensive line and attack there because that was their strength. And they did like load the box. They did a lot of different looks, but especially for the first game. Like shout out to them, man. They were really defensively sound. They knew they were gap responsible. They walked extra guys down. They green dog linebackers, which means if your running back stayed in the block or anything like that, and they kind of waited around to see what's going on, they were sending pressure, right? And they had guys walk down in the box, and they were doing twists, they went in this funky kind of, it was like a 3-3-5 hybrid kind of look where they kind of put 3 down linemen, and then they kind of walk guys up on the edge, kind of somewhat off the ball. It was kind of a funky look. I know it's something that we probably didn't practice against, and I think it was, probably confusing our guys some. And as an offensive lineman, if you are thinking slowly, you play slowly. And I don't know if people really understand that part, because the quarterback is not like kind of in sync with you as far as in you picking your like where you have to go. And Alcorn kind of had guys moving here. They was going side to side. They was just kind of, and I could feel it as an offensive lineman. Sometimes you're sitting down there before the ball snap and you're trying to be like, do we need to change how we're going to get to where we go, how we block up, and then you just kind of go. But as you go, you're going slowly, kind of making sure y'all on the same page, and they're coming full speed, and that little hesitation can really mess up a whole play, when you're thinking through it versus playing. If you say, oh, we here, bam. Then now it's way more physical, right? Versus mentally, if you got to slow down, it kills you, especially against a good defensive lineman like like a Malachi Bailey or something. He played well. So I think our guys was trying to think through their time on the offensive line. So I think a lot of their mistakes that they made, I think it's fixable. You know, the ones that I looked at, like I said, it was like a lot of assignment sound. The left side was better than the right side. But the left side also consisted of Quiz Yates at left guard, and he's been here, right? Zaire Flournoy he's been here, but this is his first year back from major injury. You know, his first year starting. And it was a couple of times like at first when he get his hands on you and he goes full speed, he has really good strength. I saw one time I saw him like really we call it throwing the guy out the club. He took him and he had him and he just swoom, you know, he threw him out the club. I'm like, ooh, you see it there. But I also saw up here that it was kind of like, oh, okay, you know, a couple times, and that really, it was a couple of times, you know, he had some penalties, and you know, it was a couple of times where I just felt him playing slow, and it messed him up responsibility wise, and then it caused confusion between him and DJ Jones on the interception. You know, it was a simple slide. The line slides left, like it's a gap protection. So the whole line slide left. You have the running back protect the edge on the right. So it's like this, and all they did was simply walk a linebacker up in the gap of the. If you're sliding down, it's kind of like, okay, maybe as a guard, I'm gonna take the linebacker. You as the tackle, you would take this defensive lineman. Well, all the linebacker did was just bag up. So if your eyes are already here, so DJ Jones' eyes was already on this linebacker, then it's kind of like, oh, he's gone. I got to shift my eyes to this defensive tackle. I think he expected a little bit more help from his guard to hold him up so he can kind of get there. Well, that didn't happen because Flournoy was like, oh, I'm here to the other guy on this side. Just a little walk up confused. It caused enough confusion for the right tackle. I'm sorry, my phone is going off here. I should have silenced it. But anyway, let's ignore that because I can't find it. but yeah, just that little bit just caused that slight confusion, and we have an interception that's come from that. When you're watching it as a fan, you're like, oh, pressure. Oh, we're not being firm enough, but it was just a walked up linebacker that caused this mass confusion. Like, just that's it. And it's little stuff like that happened the whole game. It's kind of like, man, that's fixable though. As Jimmy said, it's you kind of feel good to come out of the game like, ooh, we still blew them out, but we had a lot of mistakes, and it wasn't physical. Like, we weren't just getting whooped. It wasn't Trey Moore, you know, UTSA. It wasn't like, man, what do we do to adjust? It was, or man, we need to recruit somebody else. It was, okay, we need to get on the same page. It was a couple of times we weren't firm enough, like J.D. Morgan probably gave a little too much, or sometimes we did the Cupid shuffle instead of work on run plays. We didn't work up to the next level. We kind of shuffled around a couple of times. It resulted in a 3-yard gain versus a 7-yard gain. It's like, like the running back has to go through the hole, but it's fixable. Again, if they go in, they're gonna look at the film, and Trent, what Jimmy said, Trent always say he's the son of a offensive line coach, you know, his whole thing. I'm pretty sure, and he talked about the belly rubbing, right? Like, I'm gonna look back at that second half because if I remember when we was at the game, it looked like guys were tired. Now it did look like it was some belly rubbing going on in that third, fourth, because the guys had hands on hips and looked like they were breathing heavy. I'm like, oh, we kind of look out of shape on the offensive line, and it's a reason that they kept them in like the whole game. The only guy that came in the sub was Delano Townsend that I can remember. So, and he actually looked good out there at guard. So I wonder if, you know, he made a case on that touchdown run in the first quarter. He absolutely obliterates that guy. He takes him, and then it's just a walk-in touchdown. And then, but just apart from the offensive line, the tight ends and running backs as well, they didn't block well on the edge. Minus Dallas Payne. Dallas Payne is clearly the best tight end on the field yesterday. But as far as, you know, like dependable guys that we have, like all the time, Bryce Davis, you know, Isaiah Jacobs, those guys blocking on the edge, they did not block well, and they just didn't, So I think they will get that straightened out. I know Trent is seeding it because his soul is right there, right? And if you go back and look at those plays, if we just make a little bit of blocks here and there, 30-yard gain. But just because we just took a bad angle or something, it was like a 1-yard loss. And it's so frustrating when you look at it. Once you guys look at it again, you're gonna be like, come on, man. Come on, man. We're right there. If we clean it up, I really like our chances against ULM.
Yeah, you said that question was from Andrew, John?
Yes.
Yeah, Andrew, I would say one benefit of having this staff in year two is you've got some hindsight, you've got some data to look back to, and I keep trying to compare this game to the NCAT game last year, and UAB put up, I think it was 35 points against NCAT, and one of those scores was super late. So really, UAB was in the high 20s until I think it was Hooks that scored like late in the fourth, and then you see the rest of the season what the UAB offense was able to do. So ultimately scoring 41 in this ball game, with leaving some points on the table, like I'm not really concerned per se. Like I feel really confident that's going to get cleaned up. If there were to be a concern, like to play like devil's advocate, it's just that we're in back-to-back seasons where the offense was still trying to score late with a lot of the starters like still in the game. Like it seems like maybe there's just a little bit of a trend of slow starts in game ones for the UAB offense. But if that's just a trend in game one, and then the UAB offense is able to excel and improve as the season goes on, as they did this past year, I have little concern at all. I would have liked to see, but this kind of ties into my next point about the offensive line, is am I concerned about the offensive line? I would say no, especially in comparison to last year. But I feel like there's still just a lot of like unknowns, because I feel like, to Darian's point, we had one guy come in, Townsend, and we didn't see like a Badowski, we didn't see a Baron Franks. You're going to likely have some injuries and some shuffling around throughout the season, so I feel like it's incomplete. Like the test grade is incomplete. Like I don't know, because you really want to see what that 7 or 8, guys look like. And so I would have liked to see, how Badowski looks coming back from injury. I would have liked to see Baron Franks, get into the game a little bit to see, like, are we 8 deep, to feel even more confident as it relates to the rest of the season. But overall, I guess one last thought is just, a theme last year was, can we get the ball down the field? And we didn't really see that last night. I think it was 6.5 yards on average per pass attempt, and that was even lower than you stretch out the average for this past season. So we weren't able to really get the ball down the field. But at the same time, how much of that is intentional, scheme, game script, I should say. How much of that was impacted by a guy like Yusuf Terry not playing? I don't know what his status is as it relates to whether he'll be back or not for the next game, or when he'll be ready to return. So, but overall, I would say it's more incomplete, but I still have quite high confidence in this UAB offense.
100%. And I do think that was kind of like, not game script, but just how the game was flowing. Like UAB was able to get pretty much whatever they wanted through the run game. I think they knew they didn't have to take the top off, at least against Alcorn State. You probably definitely next week against ULM you're going to. And again, like I do know that I can hear some of our listeners or viewers saying, like, are y'all really being this nitpicky about a 41-3 victory? I mean, but there is a lot on film to improve on to get ready for this important week 2 game against ULM. And we all know UAB struggled mightily in week 2. And on the road, can UAB win on the road? We couldn't last year. So this is such an important game, and I can't wait to kind of go watch what happened with ULM and Jackson State. I've got that on my radar to rewatch this weekend, to just see how that. I mean, I know, guys, we were keeping up with it like on our phone, but just to see what happened in that game when we analyzed the film. But Richard McCollum, also BVP VIP patron, he asked, like, are there any red flags that we saw in last game that kind of uh-oh. Like, did we have any uh-oh moments? I guess I'll answer that real quick. I had an uh-oh when Michael Moore went down. That linebacker depth. I mean, we talked about preseason, previewing there's not a lot of depth there. And I don't think Michael Moore returned in the game last night, did he?
He did.
He did. He came back.
Oh, he did. Okay,
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
did.
he came back.
Yep.
Okay, well that's good. That's good.
Well, him and that was one of my takeaways too. Was like it seems like the team came out relatively healthy. There was 2 scares. Terrell McDonald on the carry early looked like that was a pretty serious injury, and he ended up coming back. And then Michael Moore, we were thinking, hey, concussion protocol, that might impact his status for the next week. But it sounds like halftime he got the necessary, looks in the eval, and that came out all clean, so he was able to come back in. So thankfully. We walked away from that ball game. It doesn't appear that there was any injuries that were suffered that will impact anyone that wasn't already sidelined.
Good. Now, and Richard also asked in the chat. He said, "What was the most surprising?" And man, special teams A+ in the game. You got Shanks, punt return for a TD, first time since J.J. Nelson in 2013 for UAB. Like, almost had the second one, but I know there was a holding penalty or blocking the back. But 2 field goals, Blazer victory podcast, all 3 of us. How electric was that when we saw that touchback? When we saw Noah kick that thing to the end zone?
It was lit.
It was lit, man.
People probably wondering what you yelling about.
Yeah,
Yes.
The first touchback of the season, you see fans were going crazy. I think some of the Alcorn fans was like, "What's going on here?"
They looked at us like, "Why are they? It's just a kickoff."
Hey,
Yeah.
I said it was the most important kickoff in UAB football history, and he nailed it.
He nailed it. Shout out to I got 38 special.
The 38
4
special.
touchbacks.
Let's go, babe. But hey, special teams A+, blocking a punt, 2 field goals, touchback, return game. It was on point, and in coverage too. Yeah, it was just a drastic compared to. And I know it's just one game, but you can tell early on. I was like, okay, and they got starters out there playing special teams that want to play special teams out there making plays. Let's go, man.
Shout out to Trace Campbell out there, our quarterback, one of our backup quarterbacks out there running down. Shout out to Lee Beebe out there. Shout out to Adrian Maddox out there. Shout out to our guy, Jimmy asked about him. He said, man, this seemed like something Jason Rouse was supposed to be on. Like, where's Rouse? I get home, because it's late. I get home. We do kickoff coverage. I see Rouse on kickoff coverage absolutely rock the returner's bell. Like, I was like, damn, Jimmy just asked about this dude. That's crazy.
My God.
He rocked them. Shout out to Sarai Bryant getting down there. Excellent coverage. James Smear, number 56. I don't know who you were. It seemed like a replacement jersey. Maybe.
Yeah, who is that?
I don't know. It seemed like a replacement jersey. Like you said, wasn't the name on the back, but he was.
Yeah.
All those guys. I just wanted to really. I feel like I'm missing people. I want to name them all out because they did a great job on coverage. Right when they did return, and then when they did return, they were catching the ball at like the 2. It wasn't at the freaking 12 or nothing like that. They was catching it at the 2, having to return back. And we got good athletes on the. I loved that part. To me was important. I don't know. I got excited when I even going back and watching. This is my first time in my life going back and really watching special teams kickoff coverage and stuff. And I'm ecstatic, man. We were like, they weren't even getting the ball to the 20, That is so dope to me, right? Like, compared to what we were going through last year, it felt like we were averaging at the 40, like giving the ball to them at their 40. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, but you see how much of a difference that makes, right? Because we're talking about 20 yards or so. 15, that's a lot of real estate that you have to make up. And then to have that defense that we had out there, and we're going to go more on that. I think Jacob Zeno had a ho-hum game, to his standards. I feel like he could have been better. He could have been worse, but he could have been better.
I feel like they kept him in too late, though. Because the game was, I get kind of like just wanting to get more continuity, like with the team, but like I was expecting to see Kit, and hey, shout out to Carter Putt came in late, but like, do y'all think that they kept him too late? Like, I thought like we need. I mean, I want to see other guys get reps, like especially when the game's out of hand. I mean,
I wanted to see somebody else, but I think he explained in the post game on one of the interviews that he was trying to. He saw this offense that was, I'm paraphrasing here, but not, producing the way that he was wanting to, and he saw some conditioning issues here and there, and he wanted to keep those guys like on the field, like he wanted to, he was intentional about it. So, like from my fan perspective, like of course I would have loved to see Kitna go out there because again it goes to that incomplete. Like we saw a little bit of Liddy last year, but a question we've had in the offseason is who is QB2? Not necessarily who is QB2, but what is that situation going to look like? We talked about Memphis last year. We brought in, Zeno was out, and we saw what the QB situation looked like. So it would have been good in a ball game like that to see Kitna come in and just command the offense a little bit, throw the ball around just a little bit, and do that. But ultimately, it seemed like there was a higher purpose, similar to again, the NCAT game last year. I think it kept Zeno in almost the whole time there too, if not the whole game as well. So the guy with the headset and the guy at the charge had a plan, and so we'll ultimately have to trust in that.
Yeah, what is depth? What is depth if the top of your depth didn't perform well? Like depth is not really depth, then that means you need to work at the top, and then once the top is developed, that's that coaching side of me too. Leave them out there. Leave them out there because they need to get better. They need to work on their conditioning. Our offensive line was tired. Our blocking on the edge was not good. I'm not really sure about the receivers. You only get to see so much, so I can't really tell you what the receivers did, to be honest. I felt like Jacob's decision making was, he could have made some better decisions here and there. It wasn't the best. I feel like sometimes our running backs, specifically where we know about Lee dropped the ball twice. On one of those, it was again, if you go back and look at the first one, the guy came in from the edge, number one. We clearly, DJ Jones is still in his stance, right? Alcorn had guys moving around late, and when I say about that as an offensive line, is that identification of what's going on. Our guys weren't ready. Like we were just kind of like, what's going on? Oh shoot! And then you kind of see like Amari Thomas, like we're in this bunch formation, and then it's just chaos. And then in the midst of that chaos, you got a guy just kind of come free, and he kind of hit the ball as soon as Lee got it. So that kind of wasn't Lee's fault, to be honest. It was just nobody knew what was going on, and I'm not even sure if they knew what play it was, to be honest. It was just a lot of chaos. Shout out to Alcorn for creating that, right? And that's a good look. Like you don't want to see it happen, but you would rather happen there so you can go back and look and see, we're going to face that again. We need to know where to go. When we didn't know where to go, as far as like guys moving around, we would just say, hey, zone it up. We are going to go right. But as long as we're all together as one and they're running around, you can find the seam, but we have to be together. And our team and that play wasn't together, and it cost us, right? They're going to fix that. That's a great look that we can fix. The second one was just his fault. The guy made a good tackle, put his helmet on the ball. He didn't cover it up. He's going to fix that. We didn't see Lee fumble all year. That was two he had. I like Trent giving him the big hug. Or Lee giving Trent the hug and picking him up. That's good coaching. You give your guys confidence. What else we had in that first half on offense?
And the pick that Zeno threw wasn't his fault. Like the guy hit it, and
the guy hit him, and I talked about that. That was the one with DJ Jones, and they were sliding down, and it was confusion, all because a linebacker simply walked up to the line and it was slide protection. So those are things that get worked out. Those are fixable. But I think it's time we can switch from. I feel like our running backs can be a little bit more patient on runs, specifically Jacobs. A couple of times I saw him, and he just kind of went too fast. You didn't let the play develop enough to where if you wait a half a second, there was a crease. But you got to give guys time so you can hit that crease. And I love the fact that we got Goodwin back in the game toward the end. You definitely saw a difference in speed. It's like he finally got his wiggle going. I was like, oh shoot. Like you get this guy the ball in open field, you see the blur. So I love the fact that we kept those guys in and say, hey, give them reps. Give them reps, let them go. And I really, out of all people, I think they really helped Goodwin the most because he got loose, and I feel like he's the guy. If we can get him one-on-one in open field, he can make a couple guys miss and he's gone. So I like that.
Hey, just a few quick notes just to close out the surprise or concerns. Is like, just from a concerning standpoint, would just be like that late, fourth and short execution, lack thereof. And Dilfer was pretty heated about that at the end. So that was something that, we talked at length about in the offseason, was those short yardage opportunities and the success behind those critical down situations. And so that was just one little moment that was kind of like PTSD, but something that I know they're going to clean up. And then surprise, Kelvin Hill, starting as a true freshman, played a ton, and early in the game, he had a play, was right there and pretty much in front of us where he almost picked it off, got physical with the receiver, looked good. Again, it was against a not great passing offense, so keep things in perspective. But, it seems that he's got, a great future ahead of him. It was surprising to see a guy like Jack Ubeck, Tyreek Watson really not get involved till the second half, and see where they are like in the rotation. They did come in late. Trent's talked about the May portal additions and kind of how it may take some time, the success rate behind those. The data's not so great. Hopefully they're still just getting acclimated to their new teams and that they'll be good. And then an interesting kind of surprise was UAB had 12 different players catch a pass in this ball game, and who would have guessed that Hooks was not one of them? So that's a pretty big surprise. He's someone that we know is going to be a focal point. We perceive to be someone that's going to be a focal point of this UAB offense. He's coming off an injury himself, so hopefully he's able to get involved in the next game because we know how dangerous he can be.
100%. And I know, Darren, you talked about it with LD Cox and that defensive line earlier in the episode, but shout out to that defensive line, man. 5 sacks, 8 TFLs. I think the defensive line just really got after that Alcorn State front, and they were in that backfield the whole game. And that's something, Jimmy, you pointed to last year. There was no pressure from the defensive line. We just couldn't get those sacks, get those TFLs consistently. And it's just so good to see the first game already, guys, Desmond Little, shout out Emmanuel Waller with the sack too. Like,
yeah, big sack.
Big sack early on in the game, kind of set the tone of how the game was going to go. But shout out to that D-line and generating pressure.
Marcus Smith, shout out to the Birmingham
Yes.
guy coming home from Ole Miss. And I was telling Darren last night that there's a great story. Somebody that had spent, I think it was like 3 years at Ole Miss and, wasn't able to get in the rotation. He's coming back home. He's getting fumble recoveries. He's doing a great job. So, yeah, that defensive line is everything that they described to us. We were able to see there in that first game. The announcers were complimentary of the defensive line, and you could just see it. You could just see their physicality. We're going to see how it lines up starting, next week and then go into the Arkansas game. That's going to be those next milestones to see how this team continues to grow. But definitely everything that people were saying about the improvement, the safety position and defensive line, that was on point. Starting with game 1 last night.
Yeah, and I want to we talked about the D-line, and I'm going to talk about them, but I want to give these linebackers love too. When Brothers Russo, Tyler McNichols, when they touched people, they went down. That we didn't really have that last year, to be honest. It was kind of like drag, 4 yards, missed tackle, how many missed tackles did we talk about last year? I mean, that started at the MCAT game, guys. I don't know if people really understand that, but the missed tackles and the gap responsibility plays, like it happened. It started at MCAT. It looks so. I know what MCAT probably only scored 6 points that game. First of all, MCAT was a way worse team. Secondly, if you look, I need to look back at that game. I know they only threw for 16 yards, Jimmy said, but it felt like they were able to push us around some, right? During last year, during that game. Like you could just when you go back and look at it, the feel of the game was just different. So I don't want to be caught in a moment here. It's like, oh man, we got this great defense. What I can say that I know for sure is that our tackling was so much better, and that our pressure, generating pressure, getting hits on quarterback, getting back in the backfield, just interrupting, that clearly was so much better. And when I say, and then guys like LD Cox, I'm coming back to him because I would see him penetrate, get upfield, then I see him retrace, right? I see him retracing, getting back and just running back 15 yards downfield, hustling. And you can do that when you have so many guys behind you that can come in, you know. You got so many guys like McQuan Merriweather didn't get into the second half. We depended on him as a starter, as a true freshman last year, right? Think about that. Him and Emon Smalls, right? You got Derek Shepard and all these guys on the inside. And I talk about slotting a lot because all of a sudden Joker Gill got in the second half and he was able to be successful. He's fresh. You know, he doesn't have to play many snaps. And in those snaps, you can slot him and put him where you want him to be, right? Where he can be successful the most. And it's something that happened to Michael Fairbanks last year, is that he kind of got caught in this position that wasn't good for him. I think because we needed him there out of necessity, right? So it's like we should have had him in a different spot, and it just limited his effectiveness because we didn't have enough talent. But now, Joker Gill came out there. I saw him stand up a guy, shrug him, tackle for loss. He did the little LeBron shoulder thing, like, hey, get off me. I'm too big. I'm too strong. You got James Smear. I need to figure out, is it Smear or Smyer? The camera froze.
He's back.
No, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I need. Is it Smear or Smyer?
I think it's Smear.
It's Smear. It was good to see him coming off the edge. He had some burst. He got a good sack. He's a real piece out there. Like, they talked about him, and I'm like, is he really? You know, as a guy that we brought in as a linebacker, see him transition to add depth on that defensive line at the edge position is good. The safeties, Donald Lee. You know, first of all, Ricky Lee didn't play. Ray Thornton didn't play neither. You know, yeah. So Tyjon Jones got the start. And, of course, Kevin Hill, we talked about, they got the start for Ricky Lee. But then you see guys like Donald Lee come in. Donald Lee was making open field tackles, guys, like with Adrian Maddox, with Tyjon Jones, with Chris Bracey. All of these are like safety nickel guys with A.J. Brown. Think about that. What did we have last year in the sense of we got these guys that we trust? Every guy they put in, I trusted. Like, they were making good plays. So I'm just thankful to see, like, I didn't feel that in NCAT. Minus what the score said, I was kind of like,
But Darian, let me share this with you. So the NCAT first possession of last season's game, 12 plays, 45 yards. But looking at the box score here, so it was not a touchback. So UAB kicked it off. They returned it 30 yards, and they start at the 36, right? NCAT runs it for 2 yards and 17. So they had like 47 yards rushing on the first drive. It ended in a field goal. But you see here, rush for 2 yards, rush for 17 yards, rush for 7 yards, rush for 3, 2, 1, 9 yards, 1, 1, 4. So they were just like running it. But
real quick,
anywho.
Well, I was going to say real quick on that first drive, you know, shout out to our Patreon, Matt in the chat, like told us that Fish got pancaked by NCAT. Like, I think it was that first drive. So you just to add to that, like, you just see like a noticeable difference in last night's game compared to the NCAT game last year.
12 plays, 7 minutes, first drive of the year, and they just ran it like for almost 50 yards like in the first possession. It was just chunk play, play.
I can't attest. I didn't go back and see it, so I didn't see Fish get pancaked or anything like that. So I can't attest to nothing like that. I don't like, you know, like doing that. But as far as like them just running the ball like towards us and clearly having a physical advantage, we were getting pushed around. And I was saying it was not only being pushed around, it was gap responsibilities. Like, we had guys hitting the linebackers. That's the only game Charlie Gould was able to play because he got hurt. We had guys like hitting wrong gaps on run fits, and I was just like, "What is this?" We had safeties coming down and getting stiff armed. I was like, "This shouldn't be happening to us. Like, it shouldn't be happening to us." So, who knows? I think from what I can tell, and I'm pretty sure you guys agree with me. I don't care who the opponent was. We clearly are better on defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm great. I'm great with the floor. I feel like defense and special teams sets a floor. I feel like offense is your ceiling raiser. Offense is kind of like, oh, maybe think about Bill Clark teams. I feel like with Bill Clark, we could win the game 17-14 on the road, right? Like muck it up, run the ball, punt, field position. We can win like that. It set a floor. It wasn't pretty, but we can probably get that win. But then you take last year, we put up 42 on North Texas and we lost. You can have that ceiling raiser all you want to, but your defense and your special teams is going to set your floor, and then at least it's can't guarantee you that win, and you can win ugly if you can get something on offense. But if we can get the offense, and I'm pretty sure we will, if the defense can give us a solid floor, we're going to see really how much this defense is, how much they have improved against ULM. And I don't think ULM has the best offense neither, but they're going to be better offense than Alcorn, right? We're going to see them in another light, take another step before we get to Arkansas, who by the way, just beat the out of Pine Bluff. It was nasty. Like, I saw one of the guys from Arkansas wave at the Pine Bluff cheerleader and everything. I'm like, oh my God, this is nasty. But but we're gonna slow our roll there. We're gonna see our defense in another light against a motivated ULM team. Brian, come on, BV and all those guys gonna want to beat us. Come on, man. We gave them the boot. It's gonna be personal. Right, those guys are going to be motivated to win for their coach, and that is a real thing. I don't know if you guys know, but players really do get motivated, and you really do once you know your coach really wants that game. You're like, we got to get it for him somehow, some way. So that is a real thing. They're going to be motivated to win for him. We need to go take their soul. Like, we need to just like LD Cox leads the charge. We need to go let them know that we're here to win as well. Like, I'm pretty sure our guys are just as motivated to get the win too, right? I got an inkling that we got an edge. We got a little edge so we're gonna see. And then, but on offense, are we sound? Do we grow? I'm really gonna be like, that's when you really see the most improvement from game 1 to game 2. I think we can. It's gonna be interesting to see what we do with Delano Townsend. Does he play more? I thought he did really well. Desire Flournoy, which I 100% believe he has my full confidence that he's going to come out. He's going to be sound, going to be physical, and I think this team is going to get it done. I want to see a 70-yard, a 50-yard long ball, though. I do want to see one. Is Yusuf Terry going to play? Will he take the top off the defense? I want to see Hooks get the ball. Yeah, I want to see him get shifty with it. I don't think he didn't have a target, did he?
I don't know if he had a target. He didn't have a catch. I don't even think he had a target.
He did play, right? Or or is that like
when he would come on the field, like where we were sitting, like the 8 and the 0, and like him and Shanks, like it just like confused me like multiple times. Is that Shanks or is that Hooks?
Are we sure? Did he play or not? So like, because like you said, the 8 and the 0. So now I'm thinking like, dang, I thought I saw him on the field half the time, but now I'm really rethinking. I don't even know if he played. I'm gonna have to look.
Somebody comment and tell us was Hooks at the game last night?
Yes.
But yeah.
Hey,
it's a lot to look for next game.
Last thing I'm going to say, John, is, look at the post-game presser, UAB Athletics on YouTube. Trent Dilfer sitting in the middle. He's got Chris Bracey on one side. He's got Cam Shanks on the other. Both are second-year players. So, second-year guys, one from the offense, one from the defense, man. The future's bright. I love that Trent plays the best players. Doesn't matter, age, doesn't look at that. But that was just kind of like a really cool picture to me in a blowout game to see arguably the most impactful guys on offense and defense are both second-year guys. And again, to see guys like Talon McNichols come in late, true freshman, making plays, Kelvin Hill, you start to really see some of that development mixed in with those experienced guys. It's only one game. It's against an inferior opponent, but there's look through the lens of that. Look through the lens and compare and like think about everything, culture wise, and like it's okay here in week 1. We won to lean into that. If we come out against Monroe and we lose, then some of those, ghost, may come out and it's like, oh no, like here we are again. Like maybe we're not as good as we think, but let's enjoy this one as we start to move turn the page and we start to prepare for Monroe. I'll be the first one. I'll be the most nervous host on this show about the Monroe game. I can guarantee you that. But yeah, let's enjoy this one, y'all.
And how we didn't mention Kobe Dempsey, like getting the pick, sticky coverage all game. The guy that came back was in the portal. He came back, and he basically was. If it was a player that you can grade like 100%, it would be like Kobe Dempsey. He was sticky coverage all game. Like, I don't know what they were trying to do with that one-on-one pass there. It wasn't working. That was kind of horrible. But yeah.
John said that ball was hanging up in the air forever. Like he was just talking trash.
Yeah. It was good. And it's great to know that you got a guy like Kobe Dempsey and a young guy like Kelvin Hill that can look at a Kobe like, okay, this like it something about that mentorship that you can expect and the leadership that you can expect from especially going to a talented guy like Kelvin Hill. Man, Kelvin, I like Kelvin Hill. Now we're going to see him against better competition, but I really like Kelvin Hill. Shout out to the true freshman out there start. Yes. And then I'm not going to say he held his own. He dominated his matchup. Like when somebody hold their own, it's like, oh, you got some, I got some, but I did good. For we both went back and forth. There was no back and forth. There was no back and forth. He dominated his matchup. So shout out to him. Shout out to that whole defensive back. Shout out to the whole defense, bro. Like the guys didn't do anything. Again, NCAT scored 6 points. So let's keep everything in perspective of be happy. Look at the improvement. Make and see if we make those improvements versus we're the best. Well, listen, 41-3, we're the best. It's like, no, we're not the best. We're not the best. We have a lot to work on. We have a lot to improve. I'm very optimistic because I feel like we can. It is very deflating when you look at the team and you kind of like, we have a lot to improve, and I don't know if we can. I don't think we can because of the talent, right? Nobody's more happier than Sione Tafo, right? Because he can look at it and say, we can play around with this. I can put Ricky Lee in and do this. I can do that. Like I can trust Tyler McNichols here. He's happy. He has a lot more to work with. Last year we were like, let's move a safety down, a linebacker, and play 2 walk-ons maybe, and let's switch up our whole defense. Y'all remember we did that, right? We switched up our whole defensive scheme to try to make something work. Now we're just kind of like, just run this play. Run that. That'll work, and everything was working. I'm just like, okay, that's good. That's a great feeling to have to think like, we can still get better. And ULM will give us another opportunity. I'm ready to see the injured guys come back, the use of Terry's, and I actually think some guys probably didn't play as much because they probably was dinged up. I know Emmanuel Waller he played limited minutes, but I think he was dealing with some dings here and there. Maybe it's Curry Watson. Maybe Jackie Beck. We don't know. They keep a lot of stuff close to the hip, but Trent has mentioned that it was been some dings and they're going to be safe with how they play some guys. So I'm expecting more minutes for those guys, and I expect a whole bunch, a better sound. I don't know what we're going to do on offense. I'm not going to predict what we're going to do. I expect us to be more sound. And if we can do that, I like our chances.
The defensive staff coached a shutout. Alcorn State scored because of that turnover in our own territory. But speaking of that, they didn't break. In that moment, like they could have break, and that could have been a score. And I think that was still like in the second quarter, if not in the first, which could have made it look a little bit closer. But that defensive staff coached a shutout. Alcorn State was in the red zone once, and it was on that possession. And they had one field goal. Outside of that, I mean, they couldn't move the ball all night. They had the long pass late. I think that was more than half of their passing yards. What a hell of a catch on that replay, like that Alcorn State guy late in the game.
And it was against like our fifth corner.
Yeah, it was like
I don't even know if it was
Bashir.
the fifth corner. Yeah,
I think it was Bashir, but I mean, still, damn. But yeah, shout out to the defense, shout out to special teams, offense. We love you. We love that we can have 517 yards and 300 plus yards rushing, and be like, man, we really left a lot of points on the table. So we love you, offense. We're looking forward to seeing you. I guess hopefully you saved all those points for next week against Monroe. Can we just say that? You went ahead and got the turnovers out of the way. You left some points on the board. So less turnovers next week, more points. Let's go.
Hey, John was in the stand screaming like, we're winning the ACC.
Yes.
CFP playoff, we're coming, baby.
He said we're beating Arkansas. He was talking trash to Arkansas.
Let's go, baby. Hey, we're going all the way this year. Hey, well, shout out again to Cahaba for sponsoring these game recap episodes of Blazer Victory Podcast this year. Free feed. We will see you for the ULM game preview sometime next week, but keep an eye on that Patreon. Interviews, some more stuff to come on the Patreon, so patreon.com/blazerpod. But Jimmy, go ahead and send us out until next time, please.
Want to know? Go Blazers. See y'all next week.